Well, welcome back to the Ham Shack, everyone. The last video we had a lot of loose ends hanging and want to skip over all that boring stuff in between to get to this point. I just want to kind of give you an update today on where we're at, some more changes I think I may make, and the sweepstakes contest is coming up this weekend. Normally my wife and I operate that quite a bit together. I'm not sure this year how much she's going to be able to operate. We'll dive into more of that in just a minute. So some noticeable changes to the Ham Shack. Cabinet over here. Originally that was going to be a floor to ceiling open bookshelf. I changed my mind after looking at it. I thought it would look too cluttered and messy. So I decided to go with a closed cabinet. I haven't got the doors built for that yet. It'll kind of have a mission style doors to it when I'm done, but I ran out of cherry plywood to finish that up. It's on order, but next week being Thanksgiving, they're probably not going to show up till the week after. So when that's done, that'll be more of a finished look. The other thing I did, I built pretty much an identical cabinet to that for the storage room to keep camera gear. A lot of stuff I get to on a regular basis, I want to just be able to go in and grab it and off of this shelf. It's going to have doors on it as well and keep it all closed up so the dust stays off of everything. And then the other thing I did was bought this toolbox that I'm just going to keep electronics gear in, meters, connectors, just all the loose odds and ends that I hate just sticking it on a shelf and not being organized. So it's all going to go in here and hopefully keep this fairly well organized and have a place and a home for everything. That's one of the things having all this junk is it needs a home. So as much as I hated to go spend money on this toolbox, I think it's going to be a good investment. Now, one thing I don't like about a lot of these toolboxes is these positive closed drawers. They're great. They pull themselves shut really nice, but every time they shut, all your gear scoots back about an inch each time you shut it. Even though it's got the matting in the bottom, which helps, it still does it. But I can live with it. It helps keep things organized. So I think overall it's going to be a good addition to this room. One thing you'll notice also on me is my beard looks a little different now. I had a little basal cell, I think it's called carcinoma, that I had to have taken off. On one of the videos you saw the biopsy of it. So they took that off, kind of had to shave for that project. And I was really surprised at how that turned out. It's healing up really nice. It's been a little over a week, about 10 days since I had it done. The spot was about half the size of a dime on the surface. That's all you could really see. When I walked out there, I didn't see the incision or what they did for about, I guess it was 2 days before I changed what the covering that they put on it. It was 2 days before we changed that. And I was really surprised when they took that off. I was expecting a little dinky incision where they took it out. I'd say it's probably about 3.5 inch long cut on the side of my face. May wind up being a pretty cool scar. I'm not sure yet, but it's healing up really nice. So that's the reason for the different look. I can't shave over it for a while, so I'm going to be a little scruffy, I guess. I don't know. We'll see how it looks. I don't think my wife's a big fan of it. Anyway, let's go on to this desk, and then towards the end I'll explain why the wife may not be able to participate much in the contest. Well, before we dive too deep into this desk, I want to mention an upgrade that I did. It's to my office chair, this vinyl plank flooring that really doesn't like those hard plastic cheapo casters that come on most of these chairs. They'll dig into this stuff and ruin your flooring in no time. So I looked into a couple options. One was these hard plastic things with felt on the bottom. You pop the casters out, put these in their place. Looks like a great idea, but that felt does not glide on, at least on this floor, worth a darn. I just didn't like them at all. I put them on that second chair that's in here. I'm going to change them out to what I'm going to mention here. The casters I put on this chair, they're made for like rollerblades. They're softer plastic or softer rubber. The company claims that's how they came up with the idea, was rollerblades. And these things have made such a world of difference. I wish I would have changed to these things a long time ago. My chair now just glides very easy. I didn't realize how much effort it took to move my old chair. Well, it's the same chair, but the old casters. Huge upgrade. Really like these things. They make the experience sitting out here and moving between desks and stuff, it's just great. And it's a cheap upgrade to your chair. There's two drawbacks to them though, kind of three. One, if you make just little short movements, 1 or 2 inches, they tend to want to go right back to where you were. But most of the movements I make are much larger than that, so I don't even notice it much. Every once in a while, I'll make one of those short moves and find myself right back to where I started. But if you're like me and you tend to make much larger movements, you won't really even notice. The second is these glide really easy. And the reason that's kind of a drawback is if you're used to those old style casters on your chair and you go to make a shove to move your chair, you're going to be across the room in a heartbeat. But the real reason I don't, it's kind of a drawback to me, is if you accidentally bump your chair, like the old chair, I could bump it and it may be moved a couple inches. When I'm standing up, like doing something, I just bump it with the back of my leg. It would just move a little bit, but I could pretty well dependably know that chair was still behind me. These things, they glide so stinking easy. If I bump my chair, it's moved several feet with no problem because it glides so easy. 3 times it's happened to me that I've went to sit back down and the chair just wasn't behind me anymore. So I did a nice back flop. Let's look at the desk. So of course we've got the TS890 over here and the 7610 back there in the corner. Originally I was going to have those swapped because I tended before to lean towards using the 7610 most of the time. I was comfortable with it, and it is a little easier to use right out of the gate. But the more I use these two radios, the more I'm leaning towards this 890. I just like the way the radio works. It's not as easy to navigate, but I kind of gravitate towards it now. Now that when I had about a 3-month break and let go of my prejudices between the two radio, I'm gravitating more and more towards this TS890. But I found an excellent way to switch between these two radios. I had these old switches. I salvaged them off of some radios that were headed to the recycler or the dump or wherever they were headed. I think they were old GE radios of some kind, but these continuous duty RF switches that were on them, these are fairly expensive switches. But it's a great switch for this because I wired it up to this little switch on the desk, so I can easily switch from the 890 over to the 7610, which is the flip of a switch. And so far, I really like that setup. It's been working really well when I've been in and out here playing with the radios, both of them. So you can just easily switch back and forth to get that A-B comparison. That little switch seems to have, the testing I did on it, probably about 80 dB or better of isolation between the two radios. So it's working out really well. What else can I tell you? Well, of course, we're still running the 2 monitors here on the desk. I've thought about putting a third one. In fact, I set one up over here and tried it out. And I like it because I can use that monitor for the radio, but I think it looks cluttered, and I don't want a cluttered looking arrangement. So I'm not sure I'm going to go with a third monitor or not yet. I may set it up for contests like this weekend. I may set it up and hook it up to the TS890. That's one thing I'll mention again. The TS890, you can't use the stinking mouse to jump around on your frequencies. That's something I really, really do like on the 7610 is you can use that to scroll frequencies, and you can't do it on the 890. Well, not directly to the radio. You can do it through the program, which is free, but it's a little bit more of a hassle. So a huge fan of the N3 FJP software. I use it for I don't contest all that much, but uses AC log, which is a general purpose log. I use that all the time. And I use all of his contesting stuff for any contest I'm on. I use his software. I really enjoy it. It interfaces well. I had a little issue interfacing to this radio. I'm trying to remember what it was. I had to reboot it a couple different times and had to update something on the computer. I don't remember. I think it was a driver. But I had to recycle the program a couple times, reboot the computer and reboot the radio a couple times, and a little bit of tweaking, and I finally got it to work, and it's working flawlessly ever since. It hasn't gave me any more problems since then. So if you do have N3FJP and the TS890, don't get too frustrated with it. I read there's several things on forums where they had to go back and use the old style COM port with a USB to COM port adapters and all that. I thought I was going to have to go that way for a little bit, but after a couple reboots, it started working fine, and it's been working fine ever since. So again, I'm going to rebuild this shelf to make it fit everything a little better. You know, it works okay. It's just not great with the amplifier dangling out over the air like that. But you know, I like the vertical arrangement, and I think it's going to be fine. The one thing I'm not super fond of with this is it raised this amplifier up in those little what are they, 1306 Ameritrons. They're noisy little amps, and it brought the noise level, instead of being down below you, it's kind of up at ear level, and it's just different. I think I can get used to it. I need to modify the thing so it's quieter. A couple guys sent me instructions on what they did to quiet those things down. One of these days I'm going to get around to it, but not today. So this is pretty much how we're going to run things for a while. Like I said, I'm going to rebuild that, make that look a little better. But overall, I like this arrangement. I stuck my dual band rig down there. I don't use it all that often, but it's there when I do use it. Another great upgrade if you're looking like me, I've got my PC down underneath this desk, so it's not easy to get to all the USB ports and the card slot. I bought this little thing off of eBay, and it's worked out really good. It's got 3 USB-Cs up here. It's got ports for all the different cards that you would ever need to read. Thing's been great. Instead of reaching under to put stuff in, I just do it up here. It makes like video editing processes much easier to be able to access that up there like that. So anyway, that's kind of it for the ham desk. I've tried to keep it just as simple as I can. Now there's one thing I want to address about, well, all of this. It's a question that I get every once in a while, or a comment that I get in the comment section when I mention this station and how I feel it's kind of a modest station. And I'm comparing it to some of the stations I've been around. For instance, one locally was NK7U, and his station was not far from here. You know, that to me was kind of a world-class contest station. I know there's guys like, I think it's K3LR and folks like that that have massive stations that, you know, compared to those stations, this is a fairly modest setup. But I understand there's a lot of money tied up here, and I want to address this probably in an upcoming video. But you do not need all of this junk. You don't need all the antennas that I have up or anybody else has up to have fun on ham radio. I had just as much fun making contacts with 100 watts out of a $300 radio and probably 30, 50 bucks worth of wire. And it was in ways even more exciting to contact those distant countries with just 100 watts, just barely squeaking through with just a simple piece of wire strung up in the air. That was just as exciting as anything I do with this station. So keep that in mind. I don't want to turn people off to ham radio thinking it's a super expensive hobby with all this junk. It just happens to be something I enjoy doing, is building a station like this. That's the reason it looks like it does. Anyway, I'll try and actually make a video completely about that. And just don't be discouraged if you see guys with those huge stations or even stations like this, and you're like, well, I can't ever afford ham radio. You can. There's much cheaper ways to do it than all this stuff. So just keep that in mind. Don't get discouraged. I just wanted to mention that real quick, because anytime I do a video that shows the station, I always get those comments. So just keep that in mind. You don't need all this baloney to have fun on the radio. So the rest of the office, of course, the work desk over here, the cabinet behind me, which I haven't got doors on, that pretty much wraps it up for the ham shack. It's coming together. That's pretty much how it's going to look from now on. There's going to be little minor tweaks here and there, but this is pretty much, I like this setup, and it's comfortable. It's enjoyable to come out here. I haven't got my guitar hooks back up yet, so I'm still working on things like that, but we're making a lot of progress. I'm hoping, through the winter I can finalize all those little fine details, but for now I'm pretty happy with the progress we've made. Looking forward to the contest this weekend. Hope to hear some of you guys on the contest. If you hear us on, give us a shout. Almost forgot. I wanted to tell you about the wife real quick. And I'm not sure she wants everybody to know this, but I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit about it. Back in, I think it was mid-August, she's a teacher. It's in-service week. They got a couple weeks of in-service before school actually starts. She woke up that morning, I think it was the first day of in-service, and we're just super dizzy and disoriented to a certain degree. And just walking to the bathroom, she got motion sick from it. But she's a trooper, and you can't hardly keep her from going to school and doing what she loves. So she went ahead and went on down to try and get some things done. She called me in about 20, 30 minutes after she got there and said, "You need to come pick me up." When she said that, I knew something wasn't right, because that's just not the way she is. So I went down there, dumped a whole bunch of questions on her. Are you feeling this? Are you feeling this? And then in her eyes were doing this kind of a strange twitching thing, which really worried me. And she says, things are just really fuzzy. I'm having a really hard time concentrating, which sent the fear of God into me. And I said, okay, we're not going home. We're going to the hospital. And so we went out there. They ran a series of tests on her and come back with, I'm trying to remember the name of this stuff. I think it's labyrinthitis is how you say it. Infection of the inner ear. And it can be bacterial or viral. I never really did understand how they tell the difference between the two, or even if they can. But they said, 2 to 3 weeks, things should get back to normal. And one of the other things that happens with this is tinnitus and hearing loss. Well, she experienced that the first day she had it, and it got a little worse over the next couple days. Well, 3 weeks go by, and she can't hear very good, and she still gets dizzy spells. So we got an appointment with the regular, just family doctor. He looks her over and he says, this is pretty much out of my comfort zone. I'm going to refer you to a specialist, an ear, nose, throat specialist, and have them look at you just to be sure. Well, those guys are like months out in advance trying to get an appointment with one of them. But he says, I'll try and work you in as soon as I can, but I want you to go have a full hearing test and a full balance evaluation. There's some name for it. I'm not sure what it is. But she called to get that arranged, which was another month out. So by the time she finally got in there, which was just a couple weeks ago, I guess now, she finally got in there to get that hearing test done and the balance test. And unfortunately, it looks like she's deaf in her right ear. She can't hear anything out of her right ear. It came to quite a shock to her that she's probably never going to get that hearing back. We've got an appointment with another specialist to talk more about it in a couple weeks. But without like a cochlear implant or something, it doesn't look like she's going to be able to hear out of her right ear, which has been a weird adjustment because I've always been the one that's had a little bit of hearing issue. And I now understand her frustration of trying to communicate with me at times. Like in the car, if she's driving and I talk at a normal level, she can't hear me at all because it's her right ear. So it's been a kind of an interesting adjustment for the family, having somebody that's deaf in one side like that. But she's got a very positive outlook, both of us do, about this. Even though she's only 40 years old, I think worst case, she has to have a cochlear implant so she can regain some hearing on that side. But it was quite a bummer. It sounds like maybe there was a slight possibility, given mass doses of some steroid within the first 72 hours. Sometimes it can help, but small town doctors that don't see these things very often, I don't really blame them all that much or at all for that. But it's kind of a bummer. So we don't know how she's going to deal with having the headphones on or listening to the radio that much. Loud stuff seems to bug her a little bit with this whole issue. So we don't know how much she's going to be able to participate in the contest. We're going to set her down on the radio some tomorrow and see how she handles it, to see if this is going to be a multi-operation or just a single op operation this time. We're hoping for multi, and she may just not be able to spend as much time on the radio as normal, but we'll see. We appreciate all the prayers. I think a couple times I asked, not specifically for that, but that's kind of what was going on in the background there. Anyway, I think that wraps it up. Didn't want to make it sound like a dreary video, but it kind of turned out that way. Anyway, it's really not. We've got a very positive outlook on all this, and there's a lot to be thankful for. So thanks for watching, subscribing, and may God bless you. And we appreciate all your guys' prayers. And as always, we're praying for you guys. We'll see you on the next video.